is Kevin. If I've never met you, I'm one of the pastors around here. We're glad you're with us today. And you guys doing good? Yeah, good. You know, summer's almost over, right? Like you're taking advantage of every moment. No, you need to embrace it's the truth. But the good thing is football is almost here, which I'm really excited about. And the fall when I'll stop sweating so much. So that's also cool. Anyway, we are talking about wisdom for dummies. And when you hear that, it almost sounds offensive, doesn't it? It just seems like, well, I'm not dumb, but you and I, we have looked at some of these For Dummies books because there are just certain subject matters that we don't get and we need to, and so we, maybe you didn't want to purchase it, you just like cracked it open at the bookstore to look at it. But they're awesome books because we have this thing where we feel like we have to be really well-rounded, and it's just not realistic. We kind of all fight this temptation to have this like sense of superiority, like we know everything, and we don't. And we need the For Dummies versions of a lot of stuff to help us, give us like the cliff notes to understand those things. And we are lucky to have a book in the Bible called Proverbs that's essentially the Wisdom for Dummies book of the Bible. It is like the cliff notes of daily practices for living a wise life, to live the kind of life that God created us to live. And so we've been looking at this book for the last couple of weeks, and we opened it up. If you missed it, go back and watch it on our YouTube channel or catch one of the podcasts. But we talked about wisdom, just wisdom in general, and what Proverbs has to say about it. And we said, if you read this book, there's 31 chapters, read a chapter a day for a month, and you read this book and do the things it talks about, you will become a wiser person, and you will be able to make more wise decisions in your life. Last week we looked at the topic of kindness, and today we're going to talk about friends, the value of friendship in our life and what Proverbs has to say about that, and the impact in our life. That really, friends are a gift in our life that we often sometimes take for granted, or we don't think enough about. Or maybe we don't realize how much Scripture actually has to say about friends, and in particular the kind of friends that we associate with. Do you guys know that psychologists say that loneliness is the number one emotional problem in our culture? The number one, it's loneliness. So even though we know friends are a gift, many of us struggle to really have deep, good, healthy friendships. We can be in crowds of people and yet feel incredibly alone. We can have tons of friends on Facebook and other social media outlets and yet feel so alone at different times of our life. In fact, Harvard University did a study. They studied over 7,000 people over a 9-year period of time to understand what healthy relationships do to a person's life. When you have significant social connections in your life, how does that impact your life versus those that don't? And what they found is that healthy relationships are a vital component of having a healthy life. They found that those people during this study that reported having no significant friendships were 3 times more likely to die. That's crazy. In fact, they said this, that relationships were more important to a person's health than your diet and your exercise. So in the words of Proverbs, the way the Proverbs language would say that, it is better to eat Krispy Kreme with good friends than broccoli alone. Amen? Yeah? And that's not really true, but it adds, I mean, literally, it is so important, our social connections to how we live life. And so it's not just about our diet or our exercise. It's not just about what we accomplish at work. It is about who we live this life with that matters. But that's not just what psychologists are finding out. That's not like new information, actually. It's not what researchers just uncovered for us. It's actually a biblical truth that's been around since the very beginning of human existence, because when God created us, He designed us in a certain way to be hardwired innately for relationship with Him and with one another. And when you read the creation account in Genesis 1, everything is good and it is perfect. God's killing it. Everything's awesome. And the first thing not good, the first thing not perfect, that's out of alignment, God says this, it is not good for man to be alone. Now, he doesn't just need to be in relationship with me. He needs some companions, some friends in life. We were built for this, made for this. And you and I, we spend so much time thinking about our relationship with God, thinking about our next steps to take in relationship with Him. And then if we're married, we think about our relationship with our spouse. And if we have kids, we think about our relationship with our kids. What I want to show you today is that the Bible is going to argue that you and I should spend just as much time also thinking about and cultivating the kind of friends that make our life better, that help us live the kind of life we were designed to live. And we're lucky from Scripture to have a ton of awesome examples of friendship. We get stories of guys like David and his friend Jonathan. We have stories of guys like Elijah and Elisha. Even Jesus had friends like John, and Paul had friends like Barnabas. And we have those examples, but we even have those examples in culture, in like pop culture. We all know Batman had Robin, and Bert had Ernie, and the Lone Ranger had Tonto, and that's far enough back into pop culture, but like that those people, even the Lone Ranger had Tonto, like we just have this understanding. We know that we need friends, and we need wingmen, and we need sidekicks, and we need companionship in life. But where Scripture will spend most of its time talking to us and challenging us is not on the need for friends as much as the need for quality friends. The character of the people that we choose to hang out with and have companionship with in this life matters. And so we're gonna read this first Proverbs out of Proverbs 13, and it is enough. What it says is so challenging and so simply true and yet profound when we live it out that we could spend our whole time just talking about it and thinking about it. But what I want to do is use it kind of as the foundation and then show you a multitude of other Proverbs that just kind of keep reinstating this same truth about our friends in life. And here's how Proverbs 13:20 reads. It says, "Walk with the wise and become wise. For a companion of fools suffers harm." See, if you walk with wise people in your life, you will become wise. That is a promise from Proverbs. But if you are a companion, a friend, and walk in life with fools or people who act in foolish ways, you will suffer harm. That is a warning. So we have a promise and we have a warning of a very simple truth. And what's cool about a verse like this, if you are somebody who's like not totally sure what you think about all this Jesus stuff, definitely not sure about all the claims of the Bible, this is the kind of verse, if you apply this to your life, it will still impact your life. Like before you believe all of the things of Jesus and his teachings, you can try to put things like this into practice and it will change you. In fact, it might be the very way that God shows you how real he is and how you've been designed to be in relationship with him. But a verse like this is so awesome because it's so simple, right? Walk with the wise, you become wise. Be a companion of fools, you suffer harm. Simple. And if we choose to accept this and believe it and live by it, we can leverage it for our own benefit, to live the kind of lives that God created us to live, or we can ignore it at our own risk. But we're invited to see it as a promise and as a warning that wisdom is contagious. That by simple proximity to wise people living wise lives, when we hang out with and associate and are companions with and walk with people who have the kind of character we want to have, who are heading in the same direction that we're trying to head, who have the kind of relationship with God that we would like, or relationship with their spouse that we would want, the kind of relationship and kind of kids they're raising that we would want, when we hang out with those kind of people, it makes us wiser. We get shaped and sharpened even by these kind of relationships, by wise people who understand that every decision comes with a consequence. We talked about this a little bit in the first week. Wise people make wise choices based not on the event, but on the consequences of those events. Wise people live life understanding that nothing is isolated, it's all connected. Who I am and what I do today will impact tomorrow, and they live accordingly to that. And the warning here about hanging out with fools is it doesn't say that if you and I associate and are companions with fools or foolish actions that our friends do, that we will become a fool. There's a subtle difference. It says companionship with fools will suffer harm. And the difference is important because we often tend to think, oh, we can hang out with so-and-so because we don't act like them. We don't say things like them. We don't do the things that they do, but they're our friend, and we think it won't impact us. And Proverbs is saying it doesn't matter if you do the things they do or say the things they say. By simple association and proximity, their foolishness will impact your life. You and I have defended some unhealthy and some unwise friendships because we won't act like that, or we don't do those things. And Proverbs is warning us that you will eventually be impacted by that. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. It's like saying the shrapnel of their stupidity will harm you. When it blows up, you don't want to be near. And this scares us to death as a parent, doesn't it? We know that the kinds of kids our kids hang out with, their character and their qualities, that's going to influence our kids. And it scares us. If you had parents like mine, they were constantly critiquing the people I was associating with because they knew this was true. But Proverbs is not talking to parents about their kids, it's talking to us because we did not graduate from peer pressure when we got out of high school. Who we hang out with affects us. And we can associate with wise people and become more wise, or we can hang around fools and just see what happens. And foolish people are the kinds of people in our lives who live as if they just don't care, that it's not that big of a deal. Oh, it'll work out, or I won't get caught. And Proverbs is saying those people are dangerous. Those are dangerous people. People that live as if life's not connected, that they can do whatever they want today and it doesn't affect tomorrow. That is foolishness. If you are a friend of someone who doesn't care about their life, they will not care about yours. That's what Proverbs is saying. You hang out with someone who doesn't care about their health, they will not care about yours. You hang out with a friend who doesn't care about their marriage, they're not going to care about your marriage, whether you ever think like them or talk like them or not. It doesn't matter. Companionship with people who could care less will eventually affect you. And as I'm talking about this, are you picturing a face of a friend in your life? Is there a fool? Or maybe you're not like, he's not a fool, that's rude, but there are some foolish things that my friend does. It's an invitation to reevaluate that relationship, to think, to choose wisely about the people that you choose to be friends with, because they shape you and they shape your future. And all of us love to think we're the exception to the rule. We do. Every one of us does it. Oh, I'm too smart. Oh, I'm too educated. Oh, that's not going to be me. Proverbs is saying, no, all of us. You guys remember back in biology class how terrible it was? I was making fun of this last night, and this guy came up, he's like, hey, I just finished my undergrad in biology. And I was like, well, sorry, sounds horrible. But you remember in biology when we learned about permeable membranes? Do you remember this? About little thin walls where microscopic particles can pass back and forth through it? That's what Proverbs is saying our friends are like. That whether we like it or not, or realize it or not, or want it or not, the convictions and the morals and the values and the decisions of the people we walk with closely in life will seep into our life. Like sheer osmosis, you and I can become more wise by simply hanging out and being with wise people. Their sober judgment will improve our judgment. Their values will enhance our values. Their morals and convictions will enhance our convictions. It's like a positive peer pressure in the same direction we're trying to head towards the things that we feel like God has called us for and shaped us for. But the reverse math is also true. It's saying when we hang out with foolish people, we can't help but it's seeping into our lives. It's like their lack of sober judgment will impact our life. You know, if their faulty moral compass gets them off course, it can knock us off course as well. And so we must learn to choose our friends wisely, because they have the ability to sharpen and shape us. In fact, that's another Proverbs. Proverbs 27:17 says it this way. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And you and I hang out with some wise people, and we will be sharpened by that. But if we hang out with fools or people who act in foolish ways, we will be dulled by that. Simple. The question is, who's sharpening you? Who is shaping you and molding you? Who are you allowing to be in your circle of friends who, whether you realize it or not, are a circle of influence in your life? Because the very thing that makes friendship so amazing is what makes it so dangerous. Because in friendship, we are accepted. And we are people who are attracted to acceptance. We're repulsed by rejection. But when we are among friends and among acceptance, our guard is down. We are the most influenceable around our friends, proved by the fact that probably most of the regrets you've made in your life were not with your enemies, but with your friends. Right? The first cigarette you smoked, were you alone or with your friends? Or pick any other regret or mistake that you've made in life. You were hanging out with people who accept you and you felt were your friends. And yet you've made these decisions that later you look back on and you're like, that was kind of stupid. It's because your guard was down. It's because we didn't realize this principle is so true and applies to every one of us, even when we're adults. And I remember back being a high schooler and junior high, I was pretty much an idiot, and I hung out with other idiots, and so we got in a lot of trouble. And I was really into skateboarding in junior high, and I had this guy I was like 14, and he was a couple years older than me, and he had a car, and we would drive in that car really fast, and we would go skateboard in cool places. And one day, and he and I made plenty of foolish decisions, and they were my own fault. I was a part of them. But there was one day where his foolishness affected my life, and it scared me to death. And what had happened is he and I were in his Volkswagen Beetle, and we probably had Nirvana on really loud, and we were driving past the high school, and there was another kid there skateboarding, and we didn't know this kid. And so my friend decides to yell out the window, "You poser," and then he probably said some other explicit language. Now, today, 20 years later, that does not sound like a big deal, right? Poser, stupid. But in 1996, from one skater to another, thems was fighting words. Okay? So he yells this out like a total idiot, and we continue driving on. Well, that guy took notice of where we went and then went and got his friend. And then we're out skateboarding behind a warehouse, and up pulls this car, comes flying in, hits the brakes, squeals, and two guys hop out, one of which has a gun. And I just peed. I just peed right there. I mean, not really, but I thought about peeing. I'm a 14-year-old hanging out with a fool whose foolishness is literally the scariest thing that I've ever experienced. I mean, it was crazy. Unfortunately, nothing too bad happened. They just exchanged a bunch of dumb words and then they left. But from that moment on, I reevaluated that friendship. And what Proverbs is teaching us is basically what we already know. We know this to be true. We've had those kind of experiences in our life, but they still matter today, even when they're not so dramatic or drastic. And so we must look for the kind of qualities that align with God and steer clear of people who are out of alignment with the things that God values and loves. In fact, that's how Proverbs 6 talks about this. Listen to what it says in regards to the things God loves and hates. Starting in verse 16, it says, "There are 6 things that the Lord hates. 7 are detestable to him." And then it starts listing the 7. "Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community." I mean, it almost sounds like the things that God hates the most are the same things that qualify a presidential candidate. Oh, that felt good. It's just a joke, okay? It's just a joke. I was just sitting that for a second. All right. But seriously, those are the things that God is opposed to. And this is a really important thing when we're talking about companionship with fools. This is not saying that we can never be around imperfect people. That is not an option. You are not a perfect person. We live in an imperfect world. You work with people who are imperfect. You live next door to people who are imperfect. You live with people who are imperfect. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Right? The world's broken. You're sitting next to proof that the world is broken, right? We are around messed up people, and we are messed up. And so this Proverbs is not about us being removed from the world and removed from people who mess up. That's not possible. The companionship component is what there is to understand. It's recognizing that the people that we walk closely with, the ones that we allow closest to us in life, that we give the most access to in life, they have influence, and we must be aware of that. And so if we work with foolish people, we can't avoid that. We're with them 9 to 5. But we must be weary and mindful of the influence they do have in our life. Be conscious of it and have boundaries. And so as we kind of follow Proverbs 6 there and look at these bad characteristics of people we should steer clear of, it helps paint the picture of really the friends that we all want and we know that we need. So the first kind of companion with a fool that it would be is it says a person with haughty eyes. And this is a person with like an attitude of superiority, someone who thinks they're better than other people, someone with just arrogance or pride, someone who thinks I am white collar and you are blue collar, I am educated and you are not, or I'm spiritual and you are not, or I'm in the band and you're just a pastor. Like we know these kind of people who think they're better than other people, right? We know these people. And here's another proverb on this. This is what it says in Proverbs 16. It says, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." See, it doesn't matter that you're the prideful one, but in close companionship with those who are, their destruction and their mistakes and their pride will seep into your life. Their mistakes will impact and affect you. And so the proverb is saying we should just steer clear of people who think that they're a big deal, people who think their office smells of rich mahogany, people who think they're better than others. Their arrogance will affect us. The second person that Proverbs 6 said we should avoid are people with a lying tongue. Hey, you and I, no one wants to be a friend with a liar. None of us would be like, oh, that's my friend. He's a total liar. That's not a thing we would have. And yet we all still have that friend, don't we? Who's constantly exaggerating, who's always one-upping stories, who just always seems to already know and have done the things that people are just bringing up. We have those people in our life, and we should just treat them with a little caution. Proverbs 12:22 says it like this: "The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy. Right? That's what we need. I mean, we've all been hurt by people who have lied about keeping a promise, or lied about how they spent the money, or lied about where they were. And that hurt should create a warning, a boundary, a guardrail in our life from those kind of foolish people. Because what we want are people who are trustworthy, people who can speak the truth to us. Those are real friends, to speak truth to us even when it's tough. Like I want friends who will let me know when something is my teeth. Be friend enough to tell me that. Or when toilet paper stuck to the back of my shoe, or when my hairline has receded enough and it's time to just let it go. Bro, right? You need those kind of friends who just let you know. But even on the real things, like, hey man, you're acting like a jerk, or there's some character issue. We need friends who are willing to speak truth. We do not need to be surrounded by people who sugarcoat stuff and avoid conflict, but love us enough to tell us the things that are real, that can be real with us, and you can be real with them, that you can handle the real you, even the messed up parts of you. That is what friendship is supposed to be about. The other thing that Proverbs 6 said for us is that we should avoid people that have hands that shed innocent blood. And I feel like that's the biggest disconnect. Like, most likely, none of us hang out with people who are murderers. That's not a thing that we all, I hope, struggle with. And yet, Jesus adds to this later. He would teach us that all of these non-violence commandments of the Old Testament are not just about physical murder, but that you can kill someone with your words. You can kill their character, and that you and I should watch out for the kind of people in our life who are willing to climb over us to climb a corporate ladder. The kind of people who are insensitive to the poor. The kind of people who are quick to sue or to stick it to somebody or to take advantage of someone in a difficult position. You and I should take grave warning about those kind of people that are in our social circles. And then it lists two last things that kind of people to keep off your team are people who have false witness and utter lies, and those who stir up strife in the community. And it's this idea of gossip. You understand, if you've got a friend who's always gossiping, who's always talking to you about other people, that most likely when they're with other people, they're talking about you. You realize that? And how dangerous gossip is, and how it undercuts people, and how it doesn't honor people? Proverbs 16:28 combines both of these last two. It talks about like this. It says a perverse person stirs up conflict, and a gossip separates close friends. We need the kinds of friends that we can trust, friends that are loyal, friends that have our back and are not talking behind it. And we need friends who are not constantly stirring up conflict. The other way to say that is we need people who aren't drama. You know those people. You work with those people. They might be in your family. They might live next to you. There's just always drama, always some fight, always some tension. They're always the victim, some conspiracy, some issue. They're just constantly battling. And Jesus would later teach us that blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who fight for peace, that are committed to relational peace. Those are wise people, people we should have in our circle of friendship, the ones that we should walk the closest with in life. So the question becomes, what do we do? Because the truth is, I haven't really said a lot of things you haven't heard or don't know. But really, I'm just reminding you about how serious we should take them. So what can you and I do this week about this? I think the first thing you and I all need to do is just heed the warning signs. Heed the warning signs and take seriously the kind of friends you choose to walk with in life. You've had the warning signs. You've pictured their face while we're sitting here talking. It's time to reevaluate some of those relationships. It's time to set some boundaries or some distance from the people and their foolish activities so that they do not bring harm. Again, you don't have to do it, but Proverbs is saying it is not wise to ignore this. Proverbs 22 verse 5 says it this way: in the paths of the wicked are snares and pitfalls, but those who would preserve their life stay far from them. Do you want to preserve your life? Of course you do. You want to be wise? Absolutely. Then steer clear and far from the foolish activities of people. Don't let their stupidity affect you. And so I want to ask you a couple of questions as you think about the people that you associate with. And just process this. And it's awesome because I don't know you. I don't know your friends. But I just know what's kind of generally true about all of us because it's true about me. So ask yourself these questions. Think about this. Is your core group of people moving in the same direction as you? Are the core group of people that you hang out with moving in the same direction of your life? Are they also trying to become the same person you're trying to become, or have the same kind of marriage or finances or whatever? Or are they going the opposite direction? Or are they seemingly hanging out over there in left field? That is a warning sign from Proverbs about hanging out with foolish people. Ask yourself this. When you hang out with certain people or certain groups of people, do you feel a pressure to pretend to be someone that you're not? To exaggerate an accomplishment? To boast about possessions? Do you feel a pressure to compromise that in other circles you do not? It's a warning. Your conscience should light up. Something's not right about this kind of relationship. It should bother us when we feel a pressure to move away from who we are or what we believe. When you're hanging out with a group of people and you feel tempted in a way that previously you would have been just totally opposed to this, but now it's an option, run. That is unwise and foolish to even allow yourself to be in that position or that place. It's a warning sign. We must choose to heed that warning. How about this? If you're going to go hang out with someone, do you ever find yourself saying and kind of like trying to justify it, saying, I'll go, but I won't participate? Anytime you ever feel like you need to say that or qualify that, that should be a warning sign to you. Because it doesn't matter if you do the things they do. It matters if you're there when they do them. It means their shrapnel could affect your life when it explodes. It means you could get associated with the stupid thing that they say. It means when they get too drunk, it could affect your life and your future. It means if they get busted, you could be in that headline too. Whatever it is, even if you're not the one doing it, are you heeding the warning? It's not about not participating. It's about association. That's what Proverbs is saying to us. Or how about this? Would you feel defensive if the people that you care about the most in life found out where you were or who you were with? Like the whole time you're there with those people or in that situation, you're building up a defense as a way to justify why you're there and why you're with them. That should scare you. That's a warning sign. Because again, it's not simply that you did it, it's that you were there and you were present. And these kind of relationships should raise big red flags in our lives. And right now, as we talk about this, if you're picturing someone or a certain situation, maybe it's a work thing and how they talk and when you guys hang out, or there's someone who's just always in your life, and the thought of distancing that relationship is super awkward. I mean, it might even be embarrassing. If you stop doing the things they do or hanging out when they do them, that might feel embarrassing or even awkward. But what Proverbs is inviting us to do, to be wise people, is to make decisions today that amplify the consequences if we don't make them. So imagine in a couple months from now, you choose not to deal with the awkwardness of boundaries today, and their stupidity blows up and affects you. Wouldn't you rewind that and come back to today to deal with the awkwardness so you can avoid the embarrassment of then? Absolutely. This is wisdom. An invitation for us to heed the warnings. You see them. You picture them. Your spouse has probably even said it to you. And it's time to do something about it, to reevaluate that. And by the way, this isn't about your spouse or about how your friend needs to hear this. This is about you. It's about your friends and their influence in your life. So almost more important, I mean, we need to heed these warning signs, but then on the positive side, what can we do to move forward from here with the friends that we have or that we need? And the next thing we need to do is just take initiative. Take initiative to start and find and cultivate the relationships that maybe you don't have or you don't have enough of. Just take some initiative. Sometimes we mistakenly think that like magically on our doorstep this week, the doorbell will ring and like your best friend that you've never met but they're there now will just show up. That has never happened. That is never going to happen. Sometimes you like show up to church and you think like we're gonna like hook you up with your new BFF. Like that's a box to check on the Connect card. Like we can't do that for you. It's not possible. So you will have to take the initiative. You will have to press in and cultivate and find the relationships to take that initiative. But we love to just wait, don't we? We start at that new company and we wait for a group of people to invite us out to lunch instead of just taking initiative and asking. We move into a new neighborhood and we wait for the neighbors to ask us to dinner and we don't just take initiative. I always laugh when I listen to some young college guy whine about how he never gets any dates. And I'm like, who have you asked out? Oh, nobody? Okay, well, go put on some deodorant and tighten your shoes and go take some initiative and ask a girl out, man. What are you waiting? It's not going to fall in your lap. We must take initiative. And it's not just about initiating the initial relationships. It's also about the discipline to intentionally always cultivate them. See, as husbands and wives, we might not do good with this, but we know we need a discipline of always dating still. We need a night where we just go out. If you don't have that, you need it. And if we're parents, you know we need time as a family. We need to sit around the dinner table, and we need to have time in our calendar carved out so we can just be with our kids and be present in their lives. That same discipline is true of our friendships. It means we need some space in our calendars for it. We need to stop making excuses about always being too busy and start valuing and cultivating the friendships that God's placed in our life. Because when we need a good friend, it is too late to try to find one. When you need that shoulder to cry on or someone to pick up that phone to hear what's going on in your life, if you don't have anyone on the other side, it starts by knowing that today and being intentional by pressing into those relationships. And so for some of you, there's this heeding the warning signs, and for others of you, it's about digging into those great relationships they have. Texting them when you leave here today and say, thank you for the gift of your friendship in my life. And let's set up coffee and let's make it happen. Let's be together because God's made us to live life together. It is not good for you and I to be alone. It's not. And the last thing is this. We got to take initiative and then we got to look in the right places. We don't go to Home Depot wanting to buy coffee. We don't go to Starbucks looking to buy an iPhone. Like, we go to the right place to find the thing that we're after. And it's important for us as we realize the need to cultivate and take initiative that we put ourselves in the right place to find other wise people. And I have really good news for you. It's super easy. You do not have to go to the Himalayas and meditate for a year and hang out with a guru to find wisdom. It's already right here. Look around you. The wisest people that you can get in touch with this week are already right here because they're wise enough, like you, to realize that they don't know it all, but they keep putting themselves in a place to be around other people trying to head in the same direction with their life. 242 is an awesome place to find friends and be in community. And so if you're someone who's been attending for a while and hasn't joined a small group, it's time. Because you can't show up often enough here and hope to really cultivate the kind of relationships you're going to need for the things that are ahead of you in life. It will take you initiating it and prioritizing it. You're going to need to visit that next step table out there. Find out about the groups that we have and people who are inviting you into friendship, to come be around other people who, wisely like you, are trying to take next steps in the relationship with God, to be sold out and be in community, to be in proximity to one another. And it will take effort. It will take discipline. It'll take getting home on time from work. It'll take setting the DVR so you don't miss the show. It'll take work to get to group, but it'll be worth it. We can't do that for you. Only you can.